Welcome to Books in the Freezer, a podcast dedicated to the deliciously disturbing world of horror fiction. I'm your host, Stephanie, and today I am joined by my friend and returning guest, Quincy, to talk about teacher horror. So, you know what that means. Class is in session.
Hello, good afternoon, Stephanie. Thanks for having me.
Hello. Oh my God, of course.
I'm really excited to talk about this because I feel this is a very, very small niche of horror that doesn't really get explored much.
You're right. It is a very small niche. And so, because of that, it was difficult to find books that fit this. We were talking about earlier because it's mostly like everyone's either going to be recommending dark academia or books where the character is a teacher
Hmm.
or that are just like set in a school.
I completely agree, and I think we can both understand that we did a lot of research going into this, trying to find like a teacher trope or a power imbalance plot story. So this was not an easy one to try and do, but I'm glad that we did it regardless.
Yeah, it was very fun because, yeah, we were kind of looking more for teacher versus student, like you were saying. These stories are inherently about power structures. So it's like either we are leaning into the fact that the teacher has power over the students, and you kind of have like a sociopathic teacher playing mind games with like a student or a class,
Hmm.
or it's the subversion of that where the student is playing mind games with the teacher and has the power in that situation for whatever reason. Or I feel like a lot of my books are kind of the ongoing cat and mouse of it all.
I definitely agree, but I also feel like there are stories out there that also like explore maybe like the dark side of the role of a teacher or educator because it goes
Hmm.
beyond just teaching someone something. There's a certain like they have to protect their students and they're responsible for guiding a new generation of kids. So there's also that aspect where like the responsibility in itself is kind of like scary.
Hmm.
So more of the story is it's not easy to be a teacher.
No.
No.
I went to school to be a teacher.
Oh my god, what was like the inspiration for that or the driving force behind that decision?
I mean, if we're being completely honest, it was
Mhm.
like the fundy school I was in, there just wasn't a lot of options.
Mm.
Like it was kind of like you either go for like one of these three degrees, and that just seems like the most practical.
I'm
Um
thinking of,
And
or
then,
no,
yeah, like
not really.
I mean, I didn't end up doing anything with it, but like I was my last semester, I had to student teach, and I was senior in college, 22 years old, student teaching a class of high school seniors. Second semester seniors, their eyes are absolutely glazed over. They are ready to graduate, worst case of senioritis, and I am up here with a PowerPoint trying to tell them about the Bill of Rights, you know.
Oh God. Kudos to you. That's
And
rough.
it was so stressful. I would get so sick every time I had to get up in front of that class and teach, and I just knew this was not the career path for me.
Dude, I don't blame you. I'm not gonna lie, that sucks.
Well, and there was, oh my gosh, you a giant part of your grade was observation. And so like you had to teach a certain amount of times throughout the year. And one of those times, the director of the education department at the college would come in and sit in your class and evaluate your lesson and your classroom control and just how well you adhered to the lesson plan, how smoothly everything went. And
Oh
that was
God.
like a third of your grade for the semester was how well you did on that day that she sat in your class.
That that's oh my God, that's giving me anxiety because like most of that grade is dependent on how your students behave.
Yeah, and she came into the class where I had, like, rowdy kids, and I was like, "No." I'm like, "You could have come to 4th period. Why did you come to
No,
2nd
thank you.
period? Why did you
No,
come to
thank
2nd
you.
period?"
I personally have no business doing a job like that, so I give you all the applause.
Well, I didn't end up doing it either. My
Attempted?
teacher, my advisor teacher was the sweetest though. She was like this little old lady who would bring me Dunkin' Donuts every Friday. And I was like telling her, I'm like, I don't think this is for me. She's
Right.
like, and that's fine, honey. It's
That's what the
totally
donuts are
fine.
for. This is for you. Oh my
Oh
god.
man.
Oh,
Do you
that.
ever have
Mm.
a memorable teacher? Good or bad?
Um, yeah, so I've definitely had a lot of like good teachers. Like I remember on my in my later days of high school, I went to like an ALC, like, alternative learning center. Not because I was like a bad kid, just because I was a kid that didn't care, you know. But I had one teacher who like really treated me like a human versus like a student.
Oh yeah.
And she was able to see like I was really into photography or yeah photography back in the day, and she was very like encouraging, and
Hmm.
she even hired me to do like her daughter's senior pictures, and she just saw like the potential I had and really like fed into that fire essentially. So
Oh.
yeah, I had really good teachers like that, but as far as like bad teachers, I there's no one that comes out to mind like specifically, but I do remember like when I was really young, starting to do like kindergarten, first grade, second grade, and like if a teacher yelled at another student or if they were clearly like struggling with something, that would scare me as a kid. And like I wouldn't talk, I would be like frozen. And I don't know why. I think just something with like adult authority was terrifying to me when they expressed some sort of like disdain or anger or anything like that.
Yeah.
But also like when you're at school and you're young, you're kind of like all you know is your parents. So you're just left with this other adult that you were told to trust, and then but you don't know anything about them. So it's kind of a scary thing. But
It is.
um, yeah, no, I've had good teachers and then kind of bad teacher experiences. But yeah, how about you?
I mean, definitely both. I thought about my high school geometry teacher. She was like the coolest lady. She was in her late 40s and she rode a motorcycle to school. And so she had a motorcycle helmet like on her desk. She was grading papers. And I have always not struggled with math and science, but they're not my best subjects. And I had an A in her class. Like I just really clicked with the way that she explained things. Like she really made math click for me in a way that it had never clicked before.
I love
Um,
that.
so then, but then she saw my A and recommended me for advanced algebra 2, which she should not have done. Because then I went to this advanced algebra 2 class with this old man, retired Marine,
Oh no no no.
who was no nonsense, ran his class like the Navy.
Mm-mm.
I know I'm mixing branches of service here, but
But still.
yeah, like you came in, you had to put your backpack close to the wall so you could not touch it like while you were at
Mhm.
your desk. You just had to grab like your pencil and whatever binder you used for this class. And he was just no nonsense. It was so tense. He scared me. And like math isn't a strong subject for me. So in a class where I did not feel okay
Then
asking a
security was
question,
already there to begin with.
yeah,
you
like
know?
I'm insecure that I don't belong here.
No.
And then it's also a place where I don't feel safe to like ask a question because I feel like I'm gonna be made to look stupid.
Mhm.
It did not work for me. It was a personality difference. I think some people really thrive with
Yeah.
like, this is exactly what I expect out of you, and everyone knows what they should be doing. Not me personally. I need a little more lenience. I need to know this is like a safe space.
Right. And it needs to be made clear that this is a safe space, you know?
So then I ended up switching out of that class.
Oh, good for you. Good for you.
Because I was just like, I still had to have him sign the paper, and my hands shook, like
Oh my god.
giving him the paper for him to sign. And he was like, "Oh, like what is this? Like, are you sure we can't work something out?" And I'm like,
Mhm.
"Sir, like where we are in class, like is beyond. I don't even know what's going on in
Mhm.
class right now, and that's just not healthy."
Like, you're lucky I found my seat, you know?
Yeah.
Oh god. Oh, that's intense.
So, That is what I thought of. So he wasn't a bad guy. Like I said, it was just a different teaching style that did not vibe with me
Right.
personally.
Mhm. I feel like there's a difference between like teaching a class and actually educating kids. You know, like could teach someone to do anything, but like to make something make sense, like, you
Yeah.
know, the math or something like that. So
Yeah.
I get it. I get it.
I had a really good chemistry teacher too. Like you could tell he really planned out these lessons and put
Mhm.
thought into them. Like a lot of them were very memorable.
Mhm.
It's just good.
I love
Doesn't
that.
matter what's it doesn't matter what subject you teach. You can.
As long as you like do it good and well. Like I had a teacher, an English teacher, he loved reading stories to us,
Mhm.
but he would put so much like passion and like character, like texture into when he was narrating these stories. So everyone loved him.
Yeah.
And like he had a very like deep voice. So like when he read these stories, like you wanted to listen. Like he was that kind of teacher. And I think those were like the best ones.
There are a few, not a lot, of movies
Yes, I
that
agree.
kind of fall into this.
I
Um,
agree.
the first one I thought of was The Faculty, which is
Mhm.
from the 90s. It has like Josh Hartnett, it has Usher, it has Elijah Wood. Okay.
That is
That's just the
hilarious.
students, the teachers. We have Jon Stewart, we have
Okay.
Salma Hayek, like a 90s stacked
Yeah. Okay. I
cast.
love this.
But it is like there's something wrong with the teachers, and this group of students becomes suspicious about what's going on, and they believe that aliens have maybe taken over their teachers' bodies, and
Mm.
maybe they wish to infect others.
Oh my god. And you said this was like a 90s movie? I've not seen
Yes,
this. Oh my god.
yes, it's so fun. Like it is just kind of like a fun 90s, like, I think it's PG-13, kind of like that teen horror
Mhm.
boom of the 90s.
Oh my god. I feel like a lot of horror like lovers, there's a certain like appreciation for like 90s nostalgia when it comes to horror, you know?
I think it depends what generation
Oh, yes,
you grew up
definitely.
in.
Definitely.
So as a millennial, I do. I have a lot of nostalgia for like 90s horror
Mhm.
and then 2000s horror.
Yeah, that's like where it started for us. So I agree. I agree.
For this, I watched a movie called Class of 1999, and it's set in this dystopian future of 1999 where youth gang violence is so high that there's some areas around the school have become free fire zones where not even police will enter.
Mm.
And so there's a whole government program set up to educate these people, and the teachers that they bring into these schools are cyborgs, like
Oh,
AI
I love
teachers.
this premise.
And yeah, we're kind of like following the rollout of this program. And these robots are essentially trained to deal with like rowdy teens. And as you can imagine, things get out of hand when the robots start going crazy with their power.
Mhm.
And you're following like one of the like punk kids, and he makes friends with the principal's daughter. She comes from a place of privilege, and at first is like very okay with this force that is using violence because it's like what's necessary, and they're just doing their job. And hanging out with this underprivileged kid, she kind of sees what that actually
Mhm.
does to
Mhm.
these people. And it's interesting if you see where I'm going with that.
Yes, yes, I love that. Girl, that sounds so good. Like, and
Okay,
like a new take.
it is interesting. You need to know it is like a corny to be like a bonkers film.
Oh yeah, but
It's
sometimes those are like the best ones.
I just need to know, like, tonally, it's not like
And when was this filmed or like released? Was it the 90s?
1990.
Okay, okay. So maybe it wasn't just self-aware, it was just a product of its time.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
just it's very silly, but I think even through its silliness, it has interesting things to say.
Mhm. I
But
love that. Isn't that the
that
love
was
of horror though? Or like
yeah.
anything dark that you can even be I don't know if this movie's actually considered funny or like a comedy, but like you just have a good time with it, you know?
Yeah. It
Yeah.
was definitely hilarious. I mean, like, the first thing we see is like one of the cyborg teachers like spanking one of their kids.
Oh
You're
God.
just like, "Oh."
Dude, that's just that sounds more of like a let me just have some cocktails with some friends and put this crazy movie on type of
Yeah,
vibe.
that is what it's for. It was so funny. It was just one of those movies where I was like, what is happening
Yeah.
right now?
And I assume did you go in like blind? Like not knowing?
Yes.
Yes.
I went in blind, and it just is like the way things escalate, like
Mm.
wild explosions, like police chases, like spying, like it's absolutely
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
A movie I started but didn't finish because I also didn't finish the novella it's based on was
Mhm.
Apt Pupil, which I picked up the novella thinking it would be literally about a teacher student
Mhm.
relationship. And I mean, it definitely has those dynamics, but for some reason, I thought it like actually took place in a school with a like an actual teacher. The novella is in Stephen King's different seasons, like the one with Shawshank
Oh,
Redemption, and so
yep.
this is like the summer story. It's called like Summer of Corruption in the collection.
Mhm.
But essentially, you're following this kid named Todd Bowden, who is this very like all American boy in the 70s. And you see him go up to knock on his neighbor's door, who's an
Mhm.
old man. And he essentially confronts him with the fact that he knows that this man used to be a Nazi and
Okay.
used to be a guard at the concentration camps,
Yeah.
and that he knows, you know, he changed his identity and came here, is now living under a new name. So he tells him that he will not turn him in if he just tells him everything about what it was
Mhm.
like to be a Nazi. And you see, maybe there's a dark side to this all American boy and the
Yeah.
things that interest him and the things that fascinate him. And it becomes a very weird relationship with kind of shifting power imbalances. And I think in this time, it is an interesting read, thinking about young
Art.
men's
Yeah.
pull towards
Yes.
curiosity towards fascism.
Yes. Um, okay, that sounds really good. I'm not even gonna lie. It sounds almost like the student possibly maybe has the power here,
Yeah.
you know? And also, but like that hunger for
There's little
knowledge.
there's like this little there's a few like switch ups where they're
Mhm.
trying to like outwit each other.
There's a lot of banter between them.
Yeah, I mean like he goes to his house for like hours every day just to hear stories
I
about
love
what
that.
happened.
I
But
love that.
it starts affecting his personal life, like his grades start slipping. He starts not being the like perfect all-American
Mhm.
boy.
Wow. I think like that's a testament to like how our own curiosity could be our downfall, you know, or get the best of
Mhm.
us, which is interesting. But I wanted to ask, is this just these two characters that you follow?
You do meet other characters. So there's like a school guidance counselor that is concerned about his
Mhm.
dropping grades, and there's a whole storyline with that, with
That.
the neighbor getting involved with him.
Mhm.
And there is like his parents who are kind of like, "How nice of you that you spend so much time with that old man down
Mhm.
the street. What a good heart you have."
Which is so funny because it's like in real life, it's like I think any normal adult would be like, "Why are you spending so much time with your teacher?"
Like
Oh,
I said, I did not finish this story,
mhm.
so I'm like almost done with it. But you know how these things go.
I do, I do. Do you like it so far though?
I do.
Yeah.
I do. Okay, Stephanie from the future here because I wanted to add in one more movie recommendation that completely slipped my mind because I was so focused on like my niche of teacher horror, which was like power imbalances, like teachers versus students, students versus teachers, that I completely didn't think of what Quincy was talking about earlier, which was the realities of being a teacher and the horrors of that responsibility. And I thought of Little Monsters from 2019 with Lupita Nyong'o, where she is an elementary school teacher, I believe kindergarten, but it's been a while since I watched it. But she is taking her kids on a field trip at a zoo, and there is a zombie outbreak. And she is just so cheerful playing her little ukulele as she is like herding her children to safety, all while maintaining this like smile on her face. It's so funny. It's also cute. It's got a little rom com angle, and she's great. She plays Shake It Off on her little ukulele. The kids are adorable. It's a fun time. Highly recommend. That is Little Monsters from 2019. So sorry, I forgot to mention that. Anyway, back to the episode. Are we ready to talk about some books?
Yes, I am.
Okay. It's funny because all of mine are kind of wild thrillers, and I love that for us. Some of yours are dark. We'll talk about that.
Yes, we'll talk about them, yes.
I'm opening this up with Confessions by Kanae Minato. This was translated by Stephen Snyder. Have you read this one?
I have not.
Oh, I think you would like this one. This one is, it goes places. It's dark. So, this is about a woman named Yuku who has called off her engagement, and kind of the only thing she has going in her life right now is her 4-year-old daughter, Manami. But when her daughter dies in an unfortunate incident on school grounds, she tenders her resignation. So the book opens up as she is addressing her class, letting them know that her daughter has died. This is her last day. And she tells a story that upends everything her students ever thought they knew about their peers and sets in motion a diabolical plot for revenge.
I love that.
She opens up this book essentially saying, like, my daughter died, and I know there are 2 students in here who are responsible, and know that you will be dealt with.
Ooh.
And so you kind of know who done it, but through the book you kind of get a why done it, because we go through the different characters. So you do kind of like go back in time. Here's this character's perspective about what happened. Like new this character like back in time, like what was their piece in all of this. And this woman's revenge game, like her and Amy Dunn.
Yeah. That sounds so exciting. Like this premise you're giving.
It is wild the places this go. First of all, it starts at like a WTF.
Yeah.
And it goes from there.
Oh my God. And you said the literally starts off with her saying, 2 students here, I know who did it, and you'll be dealt with. Like, I love that. That's like a really good way to start like kind of a venge story.
If you're looking for something that is really dark and bananas.
Oh, love that. Just like the class of 1999, right?
Just like the class of 1999. God, that movie was bananas.
I bet.
So that is Confessions by Kanae Minato. This was made into a movie. I still have not seen the movie. I don't think it's like super easy
to find.
Yeah. It was a Japanese release.
Oh, gotcha. Then maybe it's worth watching then.
Yeah. Kanae Minato also wrote one of my favorite books, which is Penance. And that also got like a mini series adaptation that I think is on Tubi right now. Nice. But anyway, I would put this in the freezer. This is
pretty gnarly.
Banana pants.
Love that. My first pick is Tampa by Alyssa Nutting, which I believe was just talked about in a recent episode. But I wanted to highlight this book just because it still fits this category that we're discussing. But we follow Celeste Price. She is a 26-year-old teacher starting a new job at a new school. And the entire story is us following her POV and her main prerogative of satiating her own appetite for young boys. So this is a very dark book, and I wouldn't categorize it as like horror, but maybe like contemporary thriller, I guess.
Mhm.
But the novel opens up on the first day of school where she meets and eventually develops a relationship with Jake, or Jack, sorry. He's a 14-year-old student of hers. And Celeste is really graced with like beauty and equipped with authority, which are tools she uses to manipulate Jack. We also follow how the relationship, like, I guess, blossoms, which I hate to say, but you get to follow the relationship that ultimately is their demise. And one thing I really like about this book is how we get to see a woman's like desire, how that flourishes, but also how it's ultimately like the monster lurking in the dark. That is the horror aspect, I feel, and how like ravenous she is, I guess, for this boy. But also, I would consider this novel like a masterclass in like creating tension. There were so many moments through this book where I was forced to just sit and marinate in my own anxiety. And if you're into that kind of visceral feeling when reading, I recommend this book. There are a lot of like icky sex scenes. And of course, Celeste, our main protagonist, is very unlikable, but I think that's kind of the point.
Yeah.
That's kind of what gives this book its charm. And you just really follow her need to satisfy herself. That's literally the whole book, and it's really fun. So, but yeah, I wouldn't consider it like Freezer, really. But like I said, there's a lot of like icky moments, so keep in mind. But yeah, that's Tampa by Alyssa Nutting.
It's a book that I feel I do need to read at some point.
Definitely, definitely.
Did you ever watch that Hulu miniseries, A Teacher?
With Kate Mara and
Nick
Rob.
Robinson.
Yes, I love that. I love that.
It was such a good series.
It really was, and like Kate Mara, like I'm not gonna lie, she can do no wrong, honestly. And even if she's playing a, a pedophile teacher, like she really killed that role. I really like that show.
She truly embodied it well. And
Mhm.
I think there is, you see with her character, there truly being a disconnect.
Yes, yes,
Because
I agree.
there's a scene where she's out with her teacher friend and they're like out in the parking lot, and the teacher's like, "Oh, are you seeing anybody?" And she like says like, "Yeah, my student."
Yeah, just flat
And
out.
yeah, and the teacher friend is like, "What? Like, is this a funny joke?"
Right? Like, did I hear that correctly?
And she's like, "What? It's he's 18." They're like, "Oh, that's not.
Mm,
Oh,
that's not the point here.
there's more to it than that."
Yeah, that was a really well done show. I'm glad that you're mentioning that because I would also too put that in this category.
Yes, and oh my god, it's so heartbreaking because you follow like Nick Robinson's character in the aftermath and how much it affects him. And
Yes.
you do get like the Kate Mara character having kind of an absolute disconnect. There's no time where she ever really owns up to anything she's done. Like you just see her suffer these social consequences and she
Mhm.
really truly feels that it's unfair like the entire
Yes.
time. And
Yes.
you get like an incredible confrontation scene at the end
Oh,
that
with both of
feels,
them.
yes, where he tells
Yes.
her like exactly what this has done to him.
Honestly, I think that was like my favorite part of it.
Yeah.
Cause like, yeah, in the beginning you get a really good insight to his youth and how impressionable he is, easily
Hmm.
swayed. And then yeah, at the end, after like becoming an adult and looking back, he tells her the truth of what it did to him. So it's very satisfying, like
Yeah.
I guess exchange of dialogue at the end.
Hmm. I think that's one of the more well done shows.
Hmm. I agree.
My next pick is Pet by Catherine Chidgey. And I'm so glad I picked this up for this episode. This was a book that had been on my radar for a long time. I think you would like it. But this is set in two timelines. They're both in New Zealand, but you're following the main character, Justine, in 1984 when she is a school age child, and 2014, which in this case would be like their modern day,
Mhm.
where she's at like a dementia center visiting her father and thinking back to her experiences in 1984 when a very beautiful, charismatic teacher came into town. And she's very glamorous and she really likes to create pets in her class and kind of play games where the students are will do anything for her approval and affection, and the kind of tangled web that Justine gets in with her. And then, kind of at this time, there's a suspected thief going around stealing stuff from the students.
Mhm.
And Justine just gets a sense that something isn't quite right. And it's really fascinating because in the 1984 chapters, you are in her child POV as she sees this like glamorous, interesting single woman in their small town.
Mhm.
You know, she mentions things that you as like a grown-up reader are like, like,
Mm,
let's dig into that a little more.
yeah.
They have I believe it's like a pet axolotl, and something happens. It gets like injured in some way, and she makes like one of the students like cut off its tail like in front of the class. Like she just really plays these
Ah,
dark
oh my god.
games. But just like the places they go, and the teacher and Justine become closer, and the teacher kind of becomes more present in Justine's life. Justine's mother has also recently died in 1984. So it's this like she is yearning for a mother figure.
Mhm.
And you see that kind of longing and need for a connection with this teacher in her life, and how the teacher like sees that, just kind of like, who is this woman? And then kind of in 2014 her looking back at like, who was that woman?
Mm, wow, girl. I was kind of jealous that you got to pick this because I was reading the synopsis when trying to find books, and this was like my
Oh
top. No, I mean like no, because it's been like circulating, like
no. Hmm.
on our TBRs. But no, this was the perfect pick, honestly.
I would say this is like between fridge and room temperature,
Mhm.
but it was a 5-star read
Mm,
for me.
love that.
Sorry I took your pick then.
Oh no, like you already had it, but when I saw it, I'm like, oh my god, like yes. So no, I'm glad it's being talked about regardless
Yeah.
because people need to hear about this.
So that is Pet by Catherine Chidgey.
Perfect. My next pick is actually so I'm just gonna talk about a book that we all are aware of, but it fits perfectly. And that's My Dark Vanessa by
Mhm.
Elizabeth Russell. Um, just to really like recount the plot, it's just we follow Vanessa. She's a student, and she develops a relationship with her male teacher, and we just follow her navigating this relationship, and then in her adult life how much in denial she is, and just trying to like grapple with, well, that wasn't abuse, I wasn't being like um coaxed into like this type of relationship with this man. Like she's very much in denial, and we follow that. And this was a very, like, heartbreaking novel, I'm not gonna lie, because it is told from the victim's point
Yeah.
of view solely, and, just how textured she was as a female protagonist, and I think the author, Kate Elizabeth Russell, she was the perfect author to talk about this and write about this. Have you read this yet? Yes?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Oh my god, I love this book.
I know. Like I think I feel confident saying this is not horror, but this is definitely like in the dark realms that us horror authors like to explore. So I definitely highly recommend this book.
Yeah, it's a fascinating character study because you're right. She is in denial for so much of it, and kind of like, no, I was the one that led him on,
Mhm,
actually. And it pulls off that authorial trick of
mhm,
this character is explaining how they feel they were in control while you, the reader, can see
that
that
she wasn't.
that they were being manipulated, that she was not in control, that
Mhm.
part of the grooming process is this like, oh, I wish I could, but that would be bad, and I couldn't do that.
Mhm. Yeah,
Like, that's
no,
part of the
I
game.
agree. No, it really is. It really is. And then I think the best chapters were her as a kid, as you like, yeah, as a reader, you're getting frustrated with her, like, why are you doing this? Come on now. But you're forced to remember, like, you were once a kid too, and you would make shitty decisions, and also how like easily manipulated you people of a certain age can be, you know.
Mhm.
But then we also get to explore like what the actions of this man, what has that done to her, you know?
Yeah. What has that
Mhm,
done to her? And she's coming to terms with this years later as an adult when somebody else has reached out
mhm,
and said, like, I was abused by this teacher and someone told me to reach out to you. And that's kind of the first thing that gets her to spiral into this. Because
mhm,
at first she lashes out at this girl and is like, no, like what we had was different. You're a
mhm.
liar. You asked for it. Like some tough emotions she has to go through. But
I
also, like
agree.
in the past, I think societally, we didn't think about these relationships in that way because when there are
Mhm.
consequences, like the adults don't treat her well.
They don't. Even her own parents kind
Even
of
her own,
like,
yeah, even her own mom is like
mhm,
ashamed of her for
yes,
doing this. So how could she not internalize that?
definitely, definitely. Yeah, there's like, I don't know if this is a spoiler, but like, I feel everyone's read it, but like, there's a part where the parents eventually do find out, and just the treatment that she receives from her own mom
Hmm.
when you which is really the scary part because you would think, oh, your parents or especially your mom is the one that should have your back, you know,
Hmm.
and when she definitely did not. So seeing the relationship with her own parents or even the other adults of this book is interesting.
Yeah. So she
Mhm.
kind of dealt with it by taking the blame for it. So of course she would be triggered by
Yeah.
like years later someone coming forward and being allowed
Hmm.
to be the victim in the narrative,
I
you know.
agree. I agree.
It's
I
a
agree.
lot. Like it's so you we could talk about it
Forever.
forever.
Forever. I agree. One thing I really wanted to highlight too is like how this trauma affects her relationships with other men as
Yeah.
she ages and what that looks like, and it's just disheartening at times. So, but yeah, I agree. We could talk for it forever, talk about it forever. But I think everyone, if you can, pick up this book and read it if you haven't already.
Yeah. It's beautiful, it's heartbreaking.
Mhm.
I mean, obviously, be aware of your triggers, know what you're going into getting in. It is about
Definitely,
sexual abuse and
definitely.
grooming. Um, I will say, like, it's much more about the effects of it than it is about the actual abuse. Like, it is
Hmm.
described at some point,
Hmm.
but we're
Yeah,
much more talking about the aftermath of that.
definitely, because that's like kind of the meat and potatoes of the reading experience, you know. But also, like, I wouldn't. I mean, I'm gonna put this in the freezer not because it's
Yeah.
scary, but because it's so like emotionally exhausting at times. But
Mhm.
it's kind of satisfying to read.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's Dark My Dark Vanessa by Kate Elizabeth Russell.
My final pick is For Your Own Good by Samantha Downing. And moving away from the dark, this is a romp. It's still dark. Like there's a body count, people
Mhm,
die, but tonally, this was just a lot of fun.
mhm,
You're following Teddy, who is teacher of the year at his prestigious private school, Belmont Academy, where he teaches English. At the beginning of the book, there is a death of a school parent um, who dies during a fundraiser, and it looks like they were poisoned, and he really cannot be bothered about the fact that it's looking more like murder or that there's a student digging a little too deep into Teddy's personal life. His main focus is pushing these kids to their full academic potential. All he
okay.
wants is for his colleagues and the endlessly meddlesome parents to stay out of his way. And Teddy is such an interesting character villain. Because when the novel opens, he's teaching at this snooty private school, and you can definitely tell he has a little disdain for these snobby, spoiled, rich kids.
Mhm.
And in the beginning of the book, he has a meeting with the parents of one of these students who is kind of like, my son isn't doing well. Is there anything we can do to make this go away?
Yeah.
And he sticks to his guns and he's like, yeah, he can do the homework. Maybe we'll talk about extra credit if I'm feeling nice, but no.
Oh, I love that kind of like that kind of drag character. It's kind of like low-key rude.
Yeah. But it still is like with this veneer of
Yeah.
politeness and like, I
Hmm.
don't know what you're talking about, but he is this like milk drinking, like American Psycho villain who loves playing mind games with his class and has very
Mm.
much like, this person is a favorite. This kid has no potential. I'm going to do this vote for this class. I know they're going to pick this. And then I'm going to do this to punish this one student. Koushun.
So he has opinions about his students, is what you're saying.
Yes.
Yeah.
And like, as you start getting like more POVs, you have someone whose life was ruined by him kind of coming to get revenge,
Mm.
and all of these like revenge plots. There's like a student who wants to get revenge. It's all these revenge plots working together, and everyone is playing games with each other and laying traps, and it truly is just kind of like a bonkers
That sounds so
fun
fun.
thriller novel set at this like fancy boarding school where like people keep dying. It's not gory. I want to say they all die like the deaths people die in like cozy mysteries. Like people
Mhm.
are getting poisoned. People are like, yes, dying in like gas leaks
Mhm.
or explosions, which I mean it's not like bloodless, but
Yeah.
it's not
Not grotesque by
it's
any
not
means.
super
Yeah.
grotesque. Um but I had so much fun with this. This was just bananas. All of my picks are just kind of like bananas.
Yeah. Page turners,
Like
it sounds, honestly.
I would say this is probably more on the room temperature side, but if you're looking for a really fun
Mhm.
thriller kind of in this academic private school setting, where people are plotting against each other, I would recommend it. That is For Your Own Good by Samantha Downing.
Girl, I'm gonna add that to my TBR because that sounds like a good read if you're like in a reading slump,
Yeah.
you know? Wow, that sounds good. Well, my last pick, I'm gonna go a little rogue here, and it's not
Ooh.
a novel or anything. It is a short story, um, Descent by Carmen Machado, and it was published in 2015, I believe, in Nightmare Magazine.
Okay.
I'll make sure like the link is available somewhere, but because this is worth reading. But in this short story, we follow our protagonist, which is essentially like us, the reader, and we are heading to a book club. And when we arrive, our host, Luna, is recounting or explaining a situation about like her time as a teacher teaching at this school, and the school she was teaching at is taking in kids from a neighboring school that just experienced a mass shooting.
Oh.
So it's a really like unique premise and like way to tell a story. um but let me see here. When so we get to look inside Luna's head and her experience with one of the students from this mass shooting that survived, and the student is now assigned to her class. And one thing I really like about this book or this short story is that Luna does not abuse her authority, but she's rather like stifled by it because she has a lot of care and love for her students. So when she is going through these things with this certain student that experienced this tragedy, there's a lot of like personal dialogue she's having with herself and trying to do the right thing by the student, and doesn't necessarily agree with what her own school is like, how they're going about taking care of these kids that went through this tragedy. Um, and another thing I like about this story is that it's a story within a story within a story. So there's like many layers. And Carmen once again does a good job at crafting a story where, yes, it's short, but the story itself feels massive in scope.
Hmm.
So yeah, you're exploring a lot of things like the trauma with this girl and what she went through at the school, but also now her new teacher, Luna, what she has to go through, and the fear of what being a teacher is and what that comes with, you know. Um, I would not, I would say this is kind of room temp, but the ending alone, I would categorize as freezer worthy. Definitely.
Wow.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
So,
I am immediately going to read this.
oh, you should. It's literally like a 20-minute read. It's super short. And it's by Carmen Machado, who we all
Yeah.
know and love. This also, I would consider this as a really good ghost story. And I'm just going to leave it at
Oh.
that. It's a
Okay.
surprise.
Teaser, little sprinkle.
Yes. And hopefully that alone is enough to entice someone to like go check this out. So, but yeah, that's Descent by Carmen Maria Machado, and that was published in Nightmare Magazine.
Mm,
Mhm,
interesting.
mhm, mhm. So I'll send you the link so you have it available.
Okay.
But
For
treat
show
yourself.
notes. Okay.
Yes, for sure.
Okay.
Definitely.
Oh, I probably could have mentioned it up top in movies, but did
Mhm.
you ever watch Battle Royale?
I've seen the movie, but I did not read the book. So
They're pretty close.
is it okay?
Yeah. I know the majority of the movie is the students fighting each other because of this battle
Mhm.
royale, but like the setup for the story is that these students were so mean to this teacher
Yeah.
1 year that he literally volunteers for this program with this class to punish them.
Yes.
He was like,
Another
"No."
bonkers like premise.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Also, high recommend if you have not read or watched Battle Royale. I will say if you pick it up as a book, if you're listening to this, it is huge and that could be intimidating. It opens up with a cast list and it's a class of like 40 students.
Mhm.
And so I think when you go into it, that alone seems intimidating. Like, how am I going to keep track of all of these characters? And through some magic, you are able to keep track of all these characters. And it's also like you have a kill count at the end of every chapter as they all keep battle royaling each other and
Right.
killing each other. Um, yeah, kind of the teacher representing this, like, volunteering is what I always gets me. Volunteering to represent this government program where this class has to kill each other until there is only one survivor. Like, they say they're going on a field trip, they get drugged on the bus, and they wake up on this island
Mhm.
where they all have to pick weapons, which is also
Mhm.
bonkers, that scene where they all their names get called randomly and they have to go out and pick up just whatever random weapon they can
Mhm.
find.
Mhm.
Some of them are more useful than others.
I
I
love
love
it.
this movie.
I know. I love it too. It's a really good time. I'm aware the book is very big. Um, so maybe like deep down, that's why I like gravitated towards the movie. But I think the movie was really good. So
Oh my gosh.
mhm.
And oh, I think one of my favorite parts is, so yeah, these kids wake up in this classroom setting with their old teacher that they terrorized, telling them that they are now going to have to all murder each other. And he puts on an instructional video, and the tone of this instructional video makes me crack up every time I watch it because it is very like happy, like Japanese, like, "Hello, welcome to Battle Royale. Here's what's going to happen.
Right.
Let me explain the rules. You might be wondering, how did we get here?"
That is so fun. That's very like dystopian, like disguising
Yes.
something as pleasant when it's really like not.
A book that's gotten a few mentions on recent episodes, but I felt like fit in here is Violent Faculties by Charlene Elsby. This is about a philosophy professor who is upset because the university she teaches at has downsized, has faced some budget cuts, and has downsized the philosophy department. And so she has taken this anger out and decides to write this I don't know if like a thesis is the right word, but this like academic paper on the importance of philosophy and what is humanity and what makes us human, by picking up people and torturing them and kind of putting these philosophical arguments behind this torture. And at some point she does kidnap the dean of the school.
Mm.
And this is not, this is a freezer. This is, you need to know what you're getting into. This is like a, sexual abuse, torture
Mm.
is thoroughly described in these, in this story, in these, in every single one of these instances, and she's making like scientific observations on these people as she's torturing
Mm.
them. It is but that is like teacher versus staff.
I love that. Girl, yes, you're giving us a lot of good material here. Mhm.
And then I also thought of They Never Learn by Layne Fargo, which is also about a college professor, um, who's, she essentially finds crappy broy dudes and they are accused of like sexual assault.
Yeah.
She takes matters into her own hands, type of thing.
Mm. I love that. These are good
So those are,
honorable mentions.
thank you. Those are my honorable mentions for teacher horror.
Love that. I wanted to ask you, I was in preparation for this, I was attempting to read Inspection by Josh Malerman, but
Mhm.
unfortunately did not finish. So I believe you read it a while
I
ago, yes?
No, I didn't.
Oh, okay, I thought you
What
did.
did you think about it? I
I
know
mean,
it's like, is it like dystopian and there's like two schools or something like that?
yeah, what I did read, I did enjoy. But yeah, it's essentially about like two schools, one for boys, one for girls, but neither know of each other. And then at some point they figure out about the other and then what that looks like. I didn't get to that part, but the dynamic between the students and the teachers and like the boys' school specifically, that was interesting to read. But yeah, I just if you read it, I wanted to ask like, oh, do you consider this a good pick or something along those lines? But why I wanted to ask is just because there is that teacher element, so
Mhm.
just something to explore.
No,
Hmm.
I might have to pick it up. That's when I missed when it came out.
Yeah, and this is definitely like old Josh Mellerman,
Yeah.
quote unquote. So, but yeah,
All right. Well, should we talk chilling obsessions? What have you been enjoying in horror
yes.
lately?
I one movie I've watched on repeat since it's came out is the new Robert Eggers Nosferatu.
Mm.
I personally loved this movie. I will be honest, I have not seen like the original silent film,
Mhm.
but so I really went into this blind with just a very vague understanding of what was going on. But no, this was a very dark and like pretty movie, I would say.
Yeah.
Very gothic. Um, and I was like, of course, whenever I like something, I go on this like obsession spiral into like the behind the scenes and stuff like that. And I was watching videos and discovered that like a lot of their scenes with candlelight, the candlelight was the only source of light. So it's very like there's times in this movie where it's hard to see, but that's like kind of the point because the darkness itself is a character.
Yeah.
Um, and Robert Eggers worked with this one company to develop like a filter to really enhance like the moonlight aspect of this movie. Because then on top of the darkness, the moonlight in itself is a character. And
Oh, there's so many
um,
good like shadows in the
yes,
movie.
yes. And like Orlok, you could tell he has fun like playing in the darkness, like that's where which of course he has to, but like it's just fun to see how he like uses that to his advantage. But no, this is a very pretty gothic, dark, textured movie that I think everyone should at least watch once. So,
Oh my god. I thought it was beautiful. Oh,
mhm.
Nicholas Holt plays
Ah,
scared
so good.
so well. Ugh.
Yes, I agree. That did you see it in theaters or did you see it like at
Yes.
home? Yeah. Okay, how am I gonna talk about this? There's a scene where he's in the castle and something is being done to him. on the
Yeah.
floor, and that was probably the scariest scene because you just see the anatomy of Orlok as he's feasting, if you will.
Yeah.
It was, oh, it was just very like graphic, but no, I'm glad that you liked it.
Oh my gosh, I saw this in theaters and there's a jump scare on the boat.
Oh, yes.
The woman next to me screamed like so loud.
Yeah.
The loudest I've ever heard anyone scream in a movie theater.
Oh, that's cute. I like that. I love
I was like, honey, this was a very obviously telegraphed jump scare by like the camera movement. Like you could tell
that.
something was coming.
Oh, I love that. Did you see this with your husband?
No.
No, because I know he doesn't like horror, right? So
No, he's not a big horror guy. So this was just me and like a bunch of other couples.
oh, even better. But also like I don't know, I think people who don't typically like horror, like I love hearing stories of when they actually do watch horror
Hmm.
and get their opinion on stuff. So
It's a great chilling
yeah.
obsession.
hmm what about you
Um,
though? Is there anything you've watched recently, or even other horror books you've
yeah,
read?
so I, like a lot of people after David Lynch
hmm
passed, um, decided to watch some David Lynch stuff.
Of course.
So I, for the first time, watched Twin Peaks Fire
Mhm.
Walk with Me. Have you seen that?
Okay, I have not. I
Have
know
you
of
seen
it.
Twin Peaks, the show?
I have not. I know,
Quincy!
I know. I mean, I know I see it. It's like on there. I know of it, but yeah, I've never actually like delved into it yet.
So I have watched Twin Peaks, at least the first season, a few
hmm
times. And then the second season, I've watched through less, but I have watched it.
hmm
And so it's a show I love. But the show opens up with the body of a high schooler Laura Palmer
hmm
washing up in this small town and she is wrapped in plastic and the um premise of the kind of small town murder mystery with the FBI is, who killed Laura Palmer. And as you go through the series, you get the answer to that.
hmm
Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me is the prequel where you see Laura Palmer's final days,
hmm
which is interesting because you watching Twin Peaks do not get to see her as a living character.
hmm hmm
And this was so beautiful and so heartbreaking and at times genuinely terrifying. Like
hmm
certain scenes, the way they were shot were so unsettling and scary. And Laura Palmer goes through so much. But I think while you're watching it, you can really feel the love that David Lynch had for her as a
I
character.
love that.
And especially with the ending and the ending he gives her.
See that alone, that care that he has for just a character, that alone is enough to like really motivate me to like watch it.
Okay, I do
No,
suggest you watch the show first because I do
show
think you need
first.
to watch that. That's the order it was released. The
hmm
show was made first and then the movie was made after. So, and also, yeah, it's going to
hmm
get spoiled for you if you watch the movie
Exactly.
and like what happened.
Right. Okay. Show first, movie second. Perfect. Okay.
Hmm.
Okay. Love that.
All right. The next tradition we have
Mhm.
on this show is to ask for a final girl song.
Yeah, okay. So whenever I pick a Final Girl song, I literally like just go through all the music I have and I'm like, what just fits the vibe? And
Hmm.
I'm gonna go with All the Good Girls Go to Hell by Billie Eilish.
Nice.
I just love this like I don't want to say angsty, but like angsty-ish, I guess, tone to the song. I love
Hmm.
that it is told from like a female's perspective, and I just feel like it really fits the vibe of a final girl
Yeah.
experience.
Hmm.
And then the video's just creepy as hell, so that's definitely my pick.
Ooh.
hmm Mhm.
I am very excited to add that
Yes.
to the
Yes.
list.
One other thing I really wanted to talk about,
Sure.
if that's okay. This is not a horror book by any means, but it is something I feel is worth talking about because it's just a very breathtaking book. It's called Orbital by Samantha Harvey, and it actually just won the Booker Prize for 2024.
Oh,
And so this is literally a very short novel. It follows 6 astronauts, 4 men, 2 women, and they're orbiting in space. And the whole book is just them reflecting, like they're looking out the window at Earth orbiting, and it's just them recounting like certain personal struggles they've dealt with, but also their relationship with Earth itself. And then you also see how they're like examining the Earth and studying it because that's like their job essentially. But it's a very beautiful book, and it's like a love letter to Earth, I would say. And it's the whole book is a 24-hour period around Earth,
yeah.
so 16 chapters, and it is stunning. It is beautiful. It's thought provoking, and a lot of elements of why we love horror you will find this in this book. Thought
Mhm.
provoking, the dialogue exchange, the deep thinking is really beautiful here. So I wanted to just kind of like recommend it to people because it is a very beautiful story.
Oh, that sounds so good. I am
Yeah,
immediately
yeah,
adding that to my
and
TBR.
then
I'm going to put that on hold at the
yeah,
library. But
and
if it just won the Booker Prize, it probably
it
has a
did.
super
And
long hold.
then can you see the cover?
Yes.
Yeah, it's like
And
it's
it's not
beautiful.
long.
It's not long at all. It's literally like less than 200 pages,
Wow. Okay.
and the chapters are like between 2 to like 8 pages. They're not long at all. It's you could definitely like devour it very quickly. But yeah, so that is Orbital by Samantha Harvey.
Oh my God, thank you for that. I
Yes.
am adding that
Mhm.
to my
Yeah, if you
list.
just need an emotional
I do.
release, girl, that's the one. That's the one.
That's the one. All right. Well, thank you for coming on and talking teacher horror with me.
Yes, then thank you for having me again. We always have a good time, and
Me
I
too.
appreciate you kind of like considering me for all these episodes because it's really the only outlet I have to like gush about books.
And I love giving you that outlet. It's what the
Mhm.
people demanded, actually.
I know. Thank you, people, because that made me feel some type of way in a good way.
Sorry, for people that don't know, I asked online for guest suggestions, and several of you said, bring Quincy back for more.
I know, like honestly, that caught me by surprise. Because sometimes I'm like, I don't even want to hear myself talk, but people love it. So
People love it.
they
I
do.
also get tired of hearing myself talk
Hmm.
editing these. I'm
Hmm. I
like,
get it.
sometimes I'm just like, what if I delete everything I say and it's just
The
this person
guess, the
talking?
guess. No, Stephanie, you have some very good insights to books, and honestly, where would the horror community be without this podcast? Honestly, you
I think I'd
know,
be doing okay, but thank you.
no, no. I mean, yes, but like, no, because you're specific about books, where a lot of people talk about other horror aspects. So you're doing good work.
Oh, thank you.
Mhm.
You make me cry up here. All right. Well, thank you again for stopping by.
Of course, thank you. I appreciate it.
Books in the Freezer is a bi weekly podcast. We post episodes every other Tuesday. You can find us on Threads, Instagram, Blue Sky, and TikTok at Books in the Freezer, or send us an email at booksinthefreezer@gmail.com. Show notes for this episode and all previous episodes can be found at booksinthefreezer.com, where you will find a list of the books and films mentioned, as well as links to several different ways you can support the podcast and links to fun stuff like merch and the Final Girl playlist. So check that out at booksinthefreezer.com. I have been your host, Stephanie. Thank you so much for listening, and see you next time on Books in the Freezer.